30 seconds and counting. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds. Guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everybody in Europe and Africa. Good afternoon, or perhaps morning to some folks in the Western Hemisphere. Good, very early morning to my viewers in the Pacific Rim. And thanks very much for joining me here on the Angry Astronaut. The chaos continues here at my studios, and the reason is I can't find a proper power cord for my laptop, and so I end up having to charge the thing up and then try to run off of what battery power I have over here. So it could be crazy tonight. We'll see. We get the best results that we possibly can. In the meantime, I am hoping that we can that I can also see the chat. I was running into some problems with volume here, and as I say, having some difficulties having some difficulties technically this evening. So once again, I do apologize. I'll do the very best that we can. First of all, give me 1 second to see whether or not I can pull up the chat, and then if I can, then we'll see where everybody's checking in from. There we go. We got the chat. At least we had a little bit of success. Let's see. We got Duluth, Minnesota. Thank you very much for checking in. We got Tacoma and Vegas. We also have Indianapolis, the Netherlands. We have South Carolina. Thanks very much for checking in today. We have West Palm Beach, South New Jersey, Mulheim-on-Ruhr, and Ireland. Hello. Thanks very much for checking in. We got Vail. Hello, Vail. Certainly one of my favorite places. We also have Northern Ireland and Portugal and Virginia, Pensacola, Florida. Yeah, FUBAR. That's true. Things are indeed FUBAR'd right now. St. Albans, UK, Corpus Christi. And thanks very much to our producer for keeping things going in spite of all of our technical challenges. Greenville, Missouri, and Costa Rica. Hello, Earth, and hello, Southport, England. Hello, Central Virginia and Finland, Northern California, rather, and South Africa, Lancashire, Maryland. UK, boy, folks checking in from everywhere. Really, really appreciate it. And once again, we're going to stay on the air as late as we possibly can tonight. According to my battery, or according to my system, I've got 52% left on my battery. We'll see how long that keeps things going. John, thank you so much for the $5. Really, really appreciate your support tonight. So we're going to talk about a topic that I have mentioned a couple of times, but never really engaged in or really, explored, even though it's something I've personally explored a number of times over the years, and that is the subject of extraterrestrial civilizations having lived on Mars at one time, existed on Mars in the very, very ancient past. And when we're talking very ancient past, we're talking millions of years ago, not thousands, not anything recently, not even at a time that the human species had begun to read and write. We're talking long time ago, perhaps even before our ancestors crawled out of the proverbial muck. So is this possible? is this something that could have happened at some point in the past? Well, I try to keep an open mind about all of these things, and I'd like to emphasize something. This was a possibility that Carl Sagan actually took seriously at one time. I remember a long time ago when I was watching the first Cosmos, Carl Sagan's masterpiece. He talked about photographs that were taken of the Cydonia region. And if the producer, I don't know if this is possible or not, if the producer can pull up one of those photographs that I sent of that region, and it needs to be remembered that and I don't know, once again, if he's going to be able to do that or not, because I didn't really give him any advance notice. It's been so chaotic here. In any event, a lot of you are probably familiar with those photographs that were taken by the Viking orbiter. And that was the Cydonia region, which appeared to have some sort of giant face, appeared to have pyramids, and also a city of sorts, that sort of thing, bearing us. There we go. Really do appreciate that. And that's actually something that I'd like to mention, since we're looking at the face on Mars right there, and and that's something that needs to be emphasized. The photograph on the left-hand side was taken by the Viking lander in 1976. And on the right-hand side, that was the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, or the MRO. It took actually more than one photo of the region. And as you can see, there is a substantial difference between what appears to be a face in the photo on the left and what appears maybe to be a face in the photo on the right. The only thing, in my opinion, that strikes me as looking kind of artificial about the photo on the right is that chevron that the face is located on. You can see that is a really interestingly shaped bluff, if we can call it a bluff. It looks very symmetrical. It looks like what I said it is, a chevron, a shield of sorts. And then we have this strange formations on it. But once again, I've seen aerial pictures of natural formations that look a lot more like a face than that does. So if indeed that is a face, if that was the intention when it was first sculpted, if it was sculpted, for one thing, it would be enormous. That formation is utterly colossal. It's very, very visible from orbit. And if it is indeed millions of years old, then sure, we could expect a lot of erosion over the years. But still, is that anything resembling proof? No, I don't think so. I don't know if the producer has any of the pyramid pictures that I sent over, because I sent some of those over as well. If you look at the original photos that were taken of the area by the Viking orbiter, you do see what appears to be pyramid shaped objects of some kind looming on the Martian landscape. And by the way, those pyramids are enormous. They would be 10 times the size of the pyramids of Giza. Right, that's the original photo that just came up here recently. Those pyramids, all that photo was taken by the Viking lander with a camera that doesn't have near the resolution that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter does. And if possible, whenever the producer gets a chance, there's another picture of just one pyramid that I sent over, and you can see once we get that up here, that was taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and you can see an incredible difference. Right, if you're looking at that, it's very, very different from what appeared to have been photographed by the Viking orbiter. Now, once again, does that maybe look like a pyramid shaped object? Maybe. I wouldn't say that it's impossible. It has a very interesting shape, definitely. Are there natural objects that also look like that here on Earth? Yes, there are. There are examples of these types of mountains, strangely shaped mountains here on Earth that would definitely correspond to something like that object that we're looking at. When you get a closer look at these objects in the Cydonia region under the microscope of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, then it doesn't look quite as artificial, in my opinion. Now, does it like not look artificial at all? No, I don't think so. I think there are certainly things about these formations that strike me as being unusual. The face, that chevron shape, as I said before, that's very, very intriguing. And yeah, a very good point was made here by Mark Tremblay. The only way to find out is to actually send humans to Mars, find small remnants of civilization. No robot with current technology can have the resolution to definitely prove that civilization existed. Yeah, very, very intriguing indeed. Oh, there's a westernmost object. Okay. I actually am not looking at that particular photograph right now. Actually, I can pull it up here. Since a recommendation was just made, maybe I can see what you're talking about. The westernmost object. Oh yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Mhm. It's I wouldn't call it a face. It's some sort of formation that seems to be sitting on some sort of bluff that could also be interpreted as some sort of very big foundation of some kind. It's intriguing, I'll tell you. It is intriguing in its appearance. Producer, I don't know, once again, if you can pull up the one of the whole Cydonia region that was taken by the Viking lander, and then on the far left you'll see what we're talking about. It appears to be some sort of formation sitting on top of, yes, thank you. And then on the far left hand side, yeah, there you go. Yeah, just blow that up and you'll see that right there in the furthest left object, some sort of formation sitting on top of what appears to be a bluff or perhaps some other foundation. But I'll tell you, when you look at this photograph and you look at the arrangement of these objects and such, sure, there's a certain degree of artificiality to them. However, once again, these sorts of things can be they I'll tell you, I have mixed feelings. I have my doubts. Oh, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your support. Thanks a lot. It makes a big difference to the channel. As I say, I don't want to have a closed mind about these things. I'm not going to say that it's impossible that a civilization might have existed on Mars in the ancient past. Consider, for example, if there had been an advanced civilization of some kind on our planet 10 million years ago, 15 million years ago. I'm not saying that there was, but what if there was an advanced civilization? There would be virtually no remnants of it whatsoever. Even these sculptures that we put on, oh dear Lord, now I'm forgetting everybody. My mind is going in my old age. It's in South Dakota. Of all the presidents, you guys know what that is. Anyway, even that cut into solid granite, erosion and time would eventually wipe that out in about 1 million years. There would be no evidence whatsoever that it had ever happened. As a matter of fact, the only thing that would remain of our civilization, probably after millions of years, would be the Apollo landing sites, because there's no erosion there. Unless a meteor, by some coincidence, were to strike there, the Apollo landing sites are going to stay there for a very, very long time. Again, no erosion. Um, Michael, thank you so much for the $5. NASA SpaceX should send autonomous humanoid and robot dogs to Mars with I mean, for recharging. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mount Rushmore. My God, I can't believe I forgot that. It's, as I say, in my old age, my mind is completely going. That is, the Mount Rushmore is one of the few things in our creations of our civilization that would remain for hundreds of thousands of years after our disappearance, but not millions. Certainly not tens of millions. And if we're talking about Mars, sure, there isn't a lot of erosion on Mars because winds definitely take their toll. The winds on Mars definitely take their toll on objects, but you don't have a hydrologic cycle. But there may have been a time when we did have there was a hydrologic cycle on Mars. And if there was, in fact, there almost definitely was a hydrologic cycle on Mars at one time. And during that time, it would have wiped away virtually any evidence whatsoever of a civilization, except perhaps for colossal monuments like the ones that might exist in the Cydonia region. Now, once again, do I think that it's likely that something like this could have happened? That a civilization might have existed on Mars, or perhaps an interstellar civilization had set up a presence on Mars for a while and then left. Yes, I think it's possible. However, do we have any sort of really compelling proof in Cydonia? Not not yet, not in my opinion. Although those images are intriguing, and although there is a certain artificiality to them, there certainly are examples of natural formations that also we have evidence of that also bear resemblance to these things here on Earth. So I wouldn't really call that the most compelling of evidence. Now, it's also very interesting, of course. Sharp eyed people are constantly on the lookout for unusual artifacts on the surface of Mars in the vicinity of the landers, of the Perseverance, Curiosity, and then back when Spirit was in operation, etc. People were always trying to find evidence of civilizations or the relics of civilizations lying around on the surface of Mars. I find it very, very unlikely that anything like that still exists after all this time. Because once again, keep in mind that back when Mars could have theoretically supported a civilization like that, a thriving civilization capable of building these gigantic monuments, Mars definitely had a hydrologic cycle as well. And after millions of years, it should have wiped out all evidence of its existence, at least small scale relics and artifacts of its existence. And all of these things that we have seen thus far, at least in my opinion, appear to be tricks of the light or just natural geological formations that are tricking us. Some of them are very, very intriguing. For example, there are these spindly formations that just kind of jut out from the ground. They are quite remarkable. They are the types of formations that probably couldn't exist on our planet. They are so thin and sinuous, and they appear to be quite fragile, something that just simply couldn't exist on Earth. But in 1/3 gravity, it creates an environment where these kinds of funky geological formations can sometimes take shape. So, once again, just because we see something that looks different on Mars in one of these Perseverance or Curiosity photographs, that doesn't necessarily scream techno signature or an artificial maker. What it indicates instead, I think, on many occasions, at least in most of the examples that I've looked at anyway, are unusual geological formations that can't exist here, but can exist on a planet that has only one third gravity. It's very intriguing indeed. Starship could become housing on the moon. Yes, and wouldn't that be ironic if our civilization goes extinct someday, and then millions of years from now, another civilization happens along and finds a starship on the moon? That's the only remnant of our civilization that's left over. Because once again, there would be no oxidation, no erosion, no rust, none of that on the moon. So anything we put there is likely to stay there for a very long time. We're talking many hundreds of thousands of years, probably millions. And so those are the sorts of environments to kind of make a transition, to kind of use that as a segue. Those are the sorts of things that we should be looking for throughout the solar system, in those sorts of environments where there is no oxidation, there is no erosion, there is no hydrologic cycle. And so, therefore, things will never go away, at least usually. Aside from a meteorite impact, nothing else is going to wipe away these sorts of relics. Where do we look for things like that? Well, on the moon. And not necessarily on our moon only. We should also be searching on the surface of Phobos, for example, or Deimos. If our solar system has been visited by other civilizations, and I think that there is very good reason to believe that at some point our solar system has been visited by someone. I think it's very likely that they might have left some sort of evidence of their visit on, on a body, on a moon or some other one of the planets of our solar system, perhaps even on the dark side of Mercury or something, a place where there's no erosion, no oxidation, and nothing that's going to wipe out the evidence of their existence. We should be searching for those areas as well. And by the way, the moon is I think a good place to start. Definitely, I think we should be looking there intently. But there are other places that we can be looking for evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations as well, and within our own solar system, in our own backyard, and that is in Earth orbit. Does that sound a bit crazy? Well, yeah. But as for those of you who've been watching my episodes about the Mount Palomar photographic plates, um, a research team out of Sweden, a group of astronomers, have been going through those photographic plates with a fine tooth comb, and it found strong evidence to suggest that in the early 1950s there were artificial objects of some kind in Earth orbit, perhaps only temporarily, but they may have left something. They may have left something behind, a satellite of some kind, some sort of monitoring device, something that we now call a Van Neumann probe. A probe just simply designed to keep an eye on us and our progress. And once again, given the fact that we have cluttered up low Earth orbit with all of these satellites at this point and all of this space junk, we would have no idea that an object like that was there. It could be gleaming beautifully in the sky, and within view of one of our telescopes. It could be sitting in geosynchronous orbit in plain sight right now, and we would have no idea that it was there, because there are numerous pieces of space debris in orbit around our planet that we have not identified. we have not identified a great number of the pieces of space junk that are in orbit. All we know is that there's something of roughly this size, maybe kind of this shape, but oftentimes we don't even know that, that's orbiting the Earth. And how do we know that this might not be an artificial object? And that is actually what this research team from Sweden is suggesting, is perhaps we should do some looking for extraterrestrial artifacts in orbit around our own planet. Bumstead, thank you. Similar in age, do you think we'll witness some sort of zero gravity propulsions used by NASA? I think it really depends on what you define as zero gravity propulsion. Now, that one that I did an episode about recently, the electrostatic drive, that we could see, assuming, of course, that it's valid. Once again, there are plenty of people who are saying that that drive is nonsense, but then there are a number of different types of unusual propulsions that could be interpreted as an anti-gravity type of drive that are currently being funded by NASA right now. If any of that is valid, if any of that technology comes to fruition as being a valid type of technology, then yeah, I think it's very possible that NASA will exploit it. If it's something that can be scaled up, something that could be successfully used. The propulsion that I talked about today, which is obviously not anti-gravity or anything like that, but the magnetohydrodynamic drive that utilizes ionized fluid. That ionized fluid can also be an ionized atmosphere flowing around the spacecraft. And interestingly enough, the most ideal shape and the most aerodynamically appropriate shape for a drive like that is a saucer. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? And once again, that there are many other characteristics of that drive that are very much in common with what UFOs do. For example, because they ionize the air around them, or that's what that drive would do, and so the ionized air flows over the spacecraft by means of a powerful electromagnetic field. You don't have the same kind of bow shock as the spacecraft cuts through the atmosphere as you do with a conventional aircraft. Therefore, you might not have the same kinds of sonic booms. And once again, what have we observed with UFOs? At least what pilots who are trying to run them down, what have they observed? That they move at supersonic velocities with no sonic boom. And then finally, this type of drive also, it ionizes the atmosphere around it into a high energy plasma that would actually glow in the dark, which would explain why UFOs appear to be these brightly glowing orbs in the night sky. Anyway, if you want to learn more about all of that, definitely check it out. Once again, Bumstead, thank you so much for your support. And boy, we have a lot of people watching, over 360. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please consider supporting this channel on Patreon. And thank you very much for everybody that's been doing the super chats. And I'd make another. Oh, thank you, Michael. Really appreciate the $5 there. The magnetohydrodynamic drive is a jet engine for the water. It is indeed, but also what NASA is currently funding right now through the NIAC program is that sort of drive where you would take water with you up into space and use ionized seawater as a propellant. And then in the process of using that propellant to drive you through the solar system, or perhaps even between the stars, it would create two different byproducts: hydrogen and oxygen. You could use the oxygen for breathable atmosphere, obviously, and you could also use the hydrogen in a fusion reactor. That's just one example of something that you could use it for. So that is right now, 2024, a funded project in NASA's NIAC division. So, and obviously they look at all kinds of next generation bleeding edge types of technologies with that program, but still very exciting. Is actually reading that gave me the idea to do an episode about that particular type of propulsion today. So, once again, NASA is taking this stuff seriously. They're investing money in these types of propulsion because they understand, just like the rest of us understand, that if we remain tethered to chemical rockets, it's only going to take us so far. We need to have better propulsion, more advanced propulsion. We need to graduate beyond this chemical propulsion that the Chinese introduced over 1,000 years ago with their rockets, and instead start looking at something different, whether that be nuclear propulsion, or if it's a magnetoplasma drive has been suggested. Also, a fusion drive. We actually have the technology now to create a fusion powered drive. Doesn't mean a fusion reactor, but rather a drive that uses plasma created by a fusion reaction to travel at immense speeds. All of these things, at the very least, I think NASA has no intention of going to Mars until we have at least a nuclear propulsion system, perhaps nuclear thermal or nuclear electric. Until we have that, I really don't think that NASA is going to take a chance on 6-month interplanetary trips where if something goes wrong, the astronauts are definitely dead. Reducing that travel time between the planets is going to make a big difference in our ability to effectively explore the solar system. And so all of these crazy different types of propulsion that are oftentimes discussed by UFO enthusiasts and alien enthusiasts, that may be the way to get us out into the solar system to where we can actually start colonizing other worlds. So until that happens, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, please like, please subscribe, and as always, stay angry about space.